The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the ECS Indomitable. Captain Minji Park stood at the command station, watching the battle unfold through the main view screen. Around her ship, 46 other human vessels fought desperately against the Vrax armada. The enemy had come with hundreds of ships, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Captain, shield strength at 40%, her tactical officer reported. The ship shuddered as another plasma bolt struck their defenses. Minji gripped the edge of her console. This was supposed to be different. The Galactic Council had promised support. 7 alien species united against the Vrax threat. Humanity had volunteered to hold the center position, the most dangerous spot in the battle formation. They trusted their allies would strike from the sides, crushing the enemy between 3 forces. But something was wrong. Where are the Council fleets? Admiral Daehyun's voice crackled over the communication channel. His flagship, the Seoul, was taking heavy fire 3 kilometers away. They should have attacked 10 minutes ago. Lieutenant Commander Taeyang checked his sensors again. His hands moved quickly across the controls, double-checking the readings. What he found made his blood run cold. Admiral, the Council ships are... they're gone. All of them jumped out of the system. Silence filled the command channel. Every human captain heard those words. 200,000 people spread across 47 ships realized the truth in the same terrible moment. They had been betrayed. Minji felt her stomach drop. She thought back to the planning sessions, the council leaders promising their full support. The Tauran commander had shaken her hand. The Vex diplomat had called humans brave allies. All lies. Captain, we're receiving an encrypted transmission, her communication officer said quietly. It's from Council High Command. Put it through. The message was short, cold, clinical. It explained that the Council had decided humanity's growing military power was a threat to galactic stability. The battle was not a mistake. It was a solution. The Vrax had been given human shield frequencies and tactical codes. This was an execution, not a war. Minji closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, her face was hard as steel. All ships, this is Captain Park. You've all heard the news by now. The Council abandoned us. They want us dead. She paused, watching another human destroyer explode on her screen. But we're not dead yet. Form up on my position. We're getting our people out of here. Admiral Daehyun's voice cut in. Agreed, all ships begin fighting retreat. Protect the damaged vessels. We go home together or not at all. The human fleet pulled closer, forming a defensive sphere. They fought like cornered wolves, every ship covering the others. The Vrax pressed their advantage, their superior numbers grinding down the human defenses ship by ship. Dr. Hana Lee worked frantically in the Indomitable's engineering section. Alarms blared around her as she rerouted power systems, trying to keep the shields operational. The ship was dying slowly, but she refused to let it die quickly. Hana, we need more power to the engines, Minji's voice came through her headset. I'm trying, Captain, but we've got hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. The reactor is already at maximum output. Across the fleet, similar desperate conversations played out. Sergeant Junho Shin led his Marine team through a damaged corridor on the destroyer Busan, carrying wounded crew members to the escape pods. Plasma fire had torn through the ship's armor and sections were open to space. Keep moving, Hunyo shouted, his voice muffled by his helmet. He could see stars through a massive hole in the wall. Get them to Pod Bay 3. He helped carry a young engineer whose leg was badly burned. The woman was barely conscious, mumbling about needing to fix the coolant system. Hunyo knew the Busan was finished, but he would save everyone he could. Hours passed. The battle became a nightmare of fire and death. Human ships fell one by one, their crews fighting to the last moment. The ECS Daejeon rammed a Vrax battleship rather than surrender, taking both vessels down in a massive explosion. The frigate Gwangju held position to cover the evacuation of a crippled transport, dying under enemy fire but saving 3,000 lives. Taeyang watched the tactical display with tears streaming down his face. Each blinking icon that disappeared was a ship, and each ship held friends, colleagues, people he had trained with. The Council had murdered them all for being too competent, too brave, too human. Admiral, we have 12 ships left, he reported. The jump point is clear. If we go now, we can make it. Daehyun looked at his own screens. 12 ships from 47. 23,000 survivors from 200,000. The numbers were impossible to process. His fleet, his people had been butchered. All remaining ships prepare for emergency jump on my mark, he ordered. His voice was steady, but inside he burned with rage. "We're going home." "Admiral, wait," Minji's voice cut in. "The Indomitable is too damaged. Our jump drive is offline. We can't make it. Then we wait for you to repair it. There's no time. The Vraks will overrun your position in minutes." Minji looked around her bridge. Her crew was exhausted, bloodied, but still at their posts. "All other ships have families waiting at home. My crew and I will stay behind. We'll buy you the time you need." "Captain, I cannot allow—" "It's not your decision, Admiral. It's mine." Minji smiled, though no one could see it. "Every second counts. Get our people home. Tell them what happened here. Make sure everyone knows the Council's betrayal." Daehyun wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Every moment of delay meant more deaths. "All personnel on the Indomitable, evacuate to nearby ships immediately." "Captain Park, that's an order." "Acknowledged. Beginning evacuation." The Indomitable's crew rushed to the escape pods and shuttles. They moved quickly but calmly, trained professionals even in disaster. Within minutes, most of the crew had transferred to the other ships. Only Minji remained on the bridge with a skeleton engineering team. "Captain, the last shuttle is leaving," Hana said through the comm. She was aboard that shuttle, forced to evacuate by Minji's direct order. "Please come with us." "Can't do that, Hana. Someone needs to fly this bucket of bolts one last time." Minji looked at her engineering displays. The reactor was already overloading, exactly as she had programmed it. "Take care of yourself. Help them build better ships. Ships that can protect our people." The last shuttle undocked. The 11 surviving human ships formed up at the jump point. The Vraks fleet closed in on the lone Indomitable, sensing an easy kill. Minji set her course directly toward the Vraks command carrier, the massive vessel that had directed the entire battle. She pushed the engines to maximum, watching the distance close. The enemy fired at her, but she ignored the impacts. The ship was already dead. It just didn't know it yet. "All human ships, this is Captain Park, final transmission." Her voice was calm. "Make them remember this day. Make them remember what they did to us. And when the time comes, make them pay for every drop of blood they spilled." She closed the channel and whispered to herself, "And after you make them pay, remember what we were supposed to be. Partners, allies, friends. Don't let revenge turn you into what they became. Be better." The Indomitable struck the Vraks carrier at full speed. The overloading reactor detonated on impact, creating an explosion visible across the entire star system. Both ships vaporized instantly, along with 3 nearby Vraks destroyers caught in the blast. The shockwave bought the precious seconds needed. The human fleet jumped to safety, carrying 23,000 survivors and evidence of the Council's crime. As they fled through hyperspace toward Earth, Admiral Daehyun sat in his command chair and wept. Around him, his bridge crew did the same. They had survived, but at a cost that would haunt humanity forever. Behind them, the Kellyan Nebula burned with the funeral pyres of 177,000 humans who had trusted the wrong allies. The betrayal was complete. Now came the reckoning. The 5 battered ships dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's moon. They looked like they had flown through hell itself. Hull armor was melted and torn. Entire sections were exposed to vacuum. Some ships barely had working engines. The sight shocked Earth's orbital defense stations. Controllers scrambled to understand what had happened. Where was the rest of the fleet? Why did these ships look like wreckage? Admiral Daehyun sent a priority transmission to Earth Command. 3 words: "We were betrayed." Within an hour, every screen on Earth showed the same images. The intercepted Council communications. The tactical data proving they had given the Vraks human shield frequencies. Captain Minji Park's final transmission before she rammed the Indomitable into the enemy. The planet fell silent. Families learned their loved ones were dead, murdered by allies they had trusted. Military bases went into lockdown as soldiers demanded immediate retaliation. Civilian protests erupted outside Council embassy buildings. The grief turned to rage. The rage turned to something harder, something colder. Director Yuna Kang sat in her office at Earth Intelligence Headquarters, watching the riots spread across major cities. She had warned about this. For years, she had reported that the Council feared humanity's military success. They saw humans as a threat, not partners. But no one had listened. They thought she was paranoid. Now 177,000 people were dead because she had been right. Her secure terminal beeped. Prime Minister Jiwon Seo was calling an emergency meeting in Geneva. All senior military and government officials were ordered to attend immediately. The citadel beneath Geneva had been built decades ago as a command bunker. Now it hosted the most important meeting in human history, the massive chamber filled with Earth's leadership. Military officers in uniform sat beside government ministers. Scientists and intelligence directors occupied the outer rings. Admiral Dae-hyun entered last. He had not slept since Kellyan. His uniform was still stained with soot and dried blood. No one spoke as he walked to his seat. The rage in his eyes silenced even the most vocal politicians. Prime Minister Jiwon called the meeting to order. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she gripped the podium. "We are here to decide humanity's response to an act of genocide," she began. "The Galactic Council deliberately sacrificed our fleet. They gave our tactical codes to the enemy. They murdered 177,000 of our people in cold blood." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Some of you will call for immediate military strikes. Others will advocate diplomacy. But before we debate, we need facts." Admiral Dae-hyun report. Dae-hyun stood slowly. He activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. The Battle of Kellyan played out in miniature, showing how the Council fleets abandoned their positions just as the fighting began. "They planned this for months," Dae-hyun said quietly. "The Tauren, the Vex, the Korath. All 7 Council species voted for it. They decided humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. So they solved their problem the easy way. They sent us to die." He showed the intercepted communications. Council leaders discussing the operation in clinical terms, calculating acceptable losses, debating whether to leave any survivors at all. They had settled on killing the military but sparing Earth itself. "For now, they expect us to accept this," Dae-hyun continued. "To sue for peace. To accept a diminished role in galactic affairs. They're already dividing our trade routes and colonial claims among themselves." The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Military officers demanded war. Politicians called for economic retaliation. Everyone had an opinion and everyone was furious. Fleet Admiral Sun Woo-han watched the chaos with ancient eyes. At 67, he had spent his entire adult life in service. He had negotiated humanity's original entry into the Council. He had believed in cooperation between species. Now he understood he had built a house on sand. He stood and the chamber gradually quieted. Sun Woo commanded respect even from those who disagreed with him. "Can we win a conventional war against the Council?" he asked simply. Director Yuna pulled up strategic assessments on the display. "No. They have 3,000 warships to our remaining 12. They control 90% of galactic trade. We have no allies. In a direct conflict, Earth would be blockaded, starved, and eventually invaded." "Then we've already lost," someone said from the back. "No." Lieutenant Commander Taiyang spoke up. He had been promoted to commander during the battle, one of the few bright spots in the disaster. Now he stood before Earth's leadership with a proposal. "We can't beat them in a conventional war, but we don't need to." He changed the display to show Council infrastructure, supply lines, trade routes, political connections between species. "The Council looks strong, but it's fragile," Taiyang explained. "They're 7 species that barely tolerate each other. Their infrastructure is spread across hundreds of systems. Their leadership is divided. They won because they always had overwhelming force, but they've never faced an enemy that refuses to fight on their terms." Dr. Hana Lee supported his analysis. She had spent the journey home studying captured Vrax technology and analyzing Council weapon systems. "Human technology is different from theirs," she said. "Our AIs are more creative. Our ships are more adaptable. Our soldiers train for situations they've never even imagined. The Council species are powerful, but they're predictable. They think war is about numbers and firepower. We know it's about adaptation and will." "You're talking about asymmetric warfare," Prime Minister Jiwon said slowly. "Guerrilla tactics, terrorism." "I'm talking about survival," Taeyang replied. "They want to destroy us? We make it too expensive to try. We hit their infrastructure, disrupt their economy, turn their alliance against itself. We don't need to conquer them. We just need to make them regret what they did." The debate raged for hours. Some officials argued for diplomacy, trying to negotiate from weakness. Others wanted total war. Consequences be damned. The military leadership was split between those who wanted revenge and those who feared extinction. Finally, as dawn broke over Geneva, Prime Minister Jiwan made her decision. She would put it to the planet. Humanity would decide its own fate. The broadcast went global. Every human on Earth and in the colonies watched as their Prime Minister stood before them. My fellow humans, Jiwan began. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council betrayed us. They murdered 177,000 of our people. They thought we would beg for mercy. They thought we would accept our place as lesser beings in their galaxy. She paused, letting the anger build. They were wrong. Humanity has faced extinction before. We have been counted out, written off, dismissed. And every time we have survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to give up. The camera panned to show Admiral Dae-hyun and the other survivors standing behind her. The Council believes this is over, that they have eliminated the threat we posed. But they have made a mistake. They have not eliminated us. They have forged us into something they will learn to fear. Jiwan turned to Fleet Admiral Sunwoo. The old admiral stood straight, his face carved from stone. Admiral Han, what are your orders? Sunwoo looked directly into the camera. He knew his next words would echo across the galaxy. Every council species would hear this. They would analyze his tone, debate his intentions, wonder what humanity would do. He gave them their answer in a single word. Revenge. The word fell into the silence like a hammer. Not a threat. Not a promise. A statement of fact. Within hours, Earth transformed. Every shipyard switched to war production. Factories that built civilian goods retooled for military hardware. Universities redirected research toward weapons and tactics. The survivors of Kellyan became trainers for a new generation of warriors. Commander Taeyang was given command of a new unit. They called it the Ghost Fleet. 12 ships modified with experimental stealth technology. Their mission was simple: make the council pay. Sergeant Junho Shin volunteered for the first ground operation. Admiral Dae-hyun tried to talk him out of it. The mission was practically suicide. Sir, they killed Captain Park, Junho said quietly. They killed my friends. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for a ship. Dae-hyun looked at the young sergeant, saw the same cold determination he felt in his own heart. You have your ship. Across the planet, millions of humans made similar choices. Parents who lost children enlisted. Scientists dedicated themselves to building better weapons. Children too young to fight prepared for the day they would be old enough. The Council received Sunwoo's broadcast in their chambers on Valoris Prime. The 7 species gathered to watch the human response. When it ended with that single word, revenge, some of them laughed. They think one word frightens us? High Counselor Thex scoffed. They have 12 ships. We have thousands. Their threats are meaningless. But a few council members did not laugh. They remembered human history. How these beings had crawled up from a death world, survived every disaster their planet threw at them, and reached the stars through sheer stubbornness. And they remembered something else. Something that made them quietly afraid. Humans never forgot, and they never forgave. The Council had started a war. They just didn't understand what kind of war it would be. Soon they would learn, and they would regret every lesson. 6 months after Kellyan, the galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. The Council declared humanity rogue elements and placed Earth under economic blockade. Their propaganda claimed the massacre was a tragic military error, not deliberate murder. They expected Earth's resistance to collapse within a year. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Commander Taeyang stood on the bridge of his ship, the ECS Shadow. Around him floated 11 other vessels, all modified with Dr. Hana's experimental stealth technology. The ships looked strange, covered in angular panels that absorbed sensor beams and scattered electromagnetic signatures. On any scanner, they appeared as nothing more than cosmic debris. This was the Ghost Fleet, and tonight, they would show the Council that humanity remembered. Their target was the Nexus Station, a massive trading hub that coordinated shipping for 1/3 of the galactic economy. It sat deep in Council territory, defended by 40 warships. The Council considered it untouchable. All ships maintain radio silence, Taeyang ordered. We go in dark and quiet. The Ghost Fleet approached, disguised as a merchant convoy, using forged Council credentials that Director Yuna's intelligence network had stolen. The defenses let them pass without question. Why would anyone attack here? It was impossible. Sergeant Junho Shin sat in a transport shuttle with his Marine team. They wore captured Council uniforms and carried fake inspection orders. According to their paperwork, they were routine safety inspectors from the Torin government. Remember, Junho told his team, we plant the charges at exactly these locations. No deviations. We have 30 minutes before they figure out we're not who we claim to be. His second-in-command, a young corporal named Minho, checked his equipment nervously. Sarge, what if they scan us? Then we fight our way out. Junho smiled without humor. But they won't. People see what they expect to see. And they expect inspectors, not enemies. The shuttle docked with the Nexus station. Junho led his team through the airlock, playing the part of a bored bureaucrat. Station security waved them through with barely a glance. They were too busy managing the thousands of ships passing through daily to worry about routine inspections. Junho's team split up, each heading to their assigned targets. They moved casually, stopping occasionally to pretend to check safety panels. No one paid them any attention. In a station of 50,000 workers, who would notice a dozen strangers? 20 minutes later, quantum charges were planted at 8 critical junctions throughout the station. Each charge was small, barely larger than a fist. But placed correctly, they would cripple the station's docking systems and fusion reactors. Junho also carried a data spike that Dr. Hana had designed. He found a maintenance terminal and plugged it in. The virus uploaded in seconds, invisible to the station's security systems. It would activate when the charges detonated, creating chaos. All teams. Report, he whispered into his comm. Team 2, charges set. Team 3, ready. Team 4, in position. Junho looked at the station's main concourse through a viewing window. Thousands of aliens went about their business, unaware that their world was about to change. He felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. These people had not personally betrayed humanity, but they supported the system that did. Shadow, this is ground team. We're ready. Acknowledged, Taeyang replied from orbit. Get to your extraction point. We light them up in 5 minutes. Junho's team moved toward their shuttle, still maintaining their cover. They were almost there when a Vex security officer stopped them. Inspector, I need to verify your credentials. We've had reports of suspicious activity. Junho's hand moved toward his concealed weapon, but Minho was faster. He pulled out a datapad and showed the officer their forged documents. Of course. Here's our authorization from Torin Central Command. We're inspecting the reactor cooling systems on decks 12 through 18. The Vex studied the documents carefully. Uno's team tensed, ready to fight. Then the officer nodded and handed back the datapad. Everything appears in order. Carry on. They reached their shuttle with 90 seconds to spare. As soon as the airlock sealed, Junho triggered the detonation sequence. The charges exploded simultaneously. None were large enough to destroy the station, but that was not the goal. Docking bay mechanisms shattered. Reactor coolant systems ruptured. Power distribution nodes overloaded. The station did not die, but it was crippled. Then Hana's virus activated. False distress signals broadcast across emergency channels, claiming the station was under attack by Vrax raiders. Council warships rushed to respond, their formations breaking as they scrambled to defend different approach vectors. That was when the Ghost Fleet decloaked. Taeyang's ships appeared suddenly on every scanner, but they did not attack the station. Instead, they fired concentrated bursts at the navigation beacons surrounding the system. Within 30 seconds, every beacon was destroyed. Without those beacons, ships could not safely jump in or out of the system. FTL travel required precise coordinates, and the beacons provided those coordinates. Destroying them turned the Nexus into a trap. Any ship here was stuck, forced into weeks-long sublight journeys to reach the nearest beacon in an adjacent system. The Council defenders tried to respond, but they were already scattered by the false alarms. By the time they regrouped, the Ghost Fleet had vanished back into stealth mode. The entire operation took 8 minutes. Junho's shuttle rejoined the shadow as the fleet slipped away. He watched the Nexus station through the viewport, its emergency lights flashing red across its massive hull. Thousands of ships were stranded. Trade routes were severed. The economic damage would be catastrophic. Good work, Sergeant, Taeyang said. No casualties on our side. Mission accomplished. Sir, the Council response fleets are arriving from 3 neighboring sectors, the tactical officer reported. They're jumping in at the coordinates the virus broadcast, and finding no navigation beacons to guide them back out. Taeyang smiled coldly. They'll be stuck there for weeks. Perfect. The Ghost Fleet jumped to safety. Behind them, The Nexus Station's communication officers sent desperate messages throughout Council space. The humans had struck at the heart of their territory. The untouchable had been touched. Within a week, 3 Council species saw their economies contract by 12%. Shipping companies declared bankruptcy. Governments scrambled to reroute trade through other hubs. But the damage was done. And the Ghost Fleet was just getting started. Over the next 4 months, Taeyang's squadron struck 17 more targets across the galaxy. They followed a pattern that drove the Council to madness. They never fought fair. When Council warships hunted them, they vanished into asteroid fields or nebulae. When defenses were strong, they waited until those defenses were needed elsewhere. Then struck. They targeted infrastructure, not people, power grids, communication relays, resource extractors. They destroyed the tools of civilization while leaving the civilians alive to suffer the consequences. They employed psychological warfare. Before each attack, they broadcast footage of the Kellyan massacre. Made sure everyone remembered why this was happening. Made sure the Council's own citizens questioned their leaders, and they always left witnesses. Let people see the destruction. Let the fear spread. Let the Council understand that nowhere was safe. High Councilor Thex watched reports of the attacks with growing frustration. His military commanders promised they would catch the Ghost Fleet. They increased patrols, deployed sensor nets, fortified critical infrastructure. It did not matter. The humans always found a way through. How are they doing this? Thex demanded at a council session. 12 ships against our entire fleet and we cannot stop them? Admiral Vryn, the council's top military commander, studied the tactical reports with obsession. He began to understand something that terrified him. The humans were not trying to win a war. They were teaching a lesson. Every attack had military precision but political purpose. They hit targets that caused maximum economic damage with minimal loss of life. They made the Council look weak without giving them a clear enemy to fight. They were fighting a war the Council did not know how to counter. We need to strike back at Earth, one Council member suggested. Show them we can hurt them too. No, another argued. That will only prove their propaganda right. We need to negotiate, the Council fractured. Some species wanted total war. Others wanted peace. The unity that had defined them for centuries began to crack. Dr. Hana listened to intercepted Council communications from her laboratory on Earth. She smiled as she heard their confusion and fear. The Ghost Fleet was working exactly as planned. Commander Taeyang, I have your next target, she said into her comm. Valoris Prime, the Council capital? That's suicide. Only if we try to win. But we're not trying to win. We're trying to make a point. Taeyang reviewed the intelligence. The planetary defenses were massive. 200 warships, orbital defense platforms, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment. No sane military commander would attack it. But then again, the Council had learned that humans were rarely sane. What's the target? Taeyang asked. The Monument of Unity. It's in the center of Valoris City, completely undefended because no one believes it could be threatened. Hana pulled up the schematics. The planetary shield has a design flaw. There's a microsecond gap during shift changes. If we time it perfectly, a single ship can slip through. And 14 months after Kellyan, the Galactic Council was breaking apart from within. The Ghost Fleet's campaign had done more than damage infrastructure. It had shattered the illusion of Council strength. Now the 7 species that once stood united were questioning everything. Director Yuna sat in her office on Earth, reviewing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Her network of human spies and sympathetic aliens had grown substantially. Turns out many people were willing to betray the Council once they saw it was vulnerable. One report caught her attention. A Tauran diplomat named Resh had sent an encrypted message through 3 intermediaries. The message was simple but significant. Not all of us wanted this war. Some of us would see it end. Yuna immediately forwarded the information to Ambassador Keiko Nam. The ambassador had spent the past year rebuilding Earth's diplomatic connections through neutral channels. If the Council was truly fracturing, this was the opportunity they needed. How reliable is this source? Prime Minister Jiwan asked during their secure video conference. Very, Yuna replied. Resh was one of 3 Council members who voted against the Kellyan operation. The Tauran, Plenari, and Silcath species were apparently coerced by the dominant faction. They participated because they feared being targeted next. So they threw us to the wolves to save themselves, Fleet Admiral Sun Wu said bitterly. Yes, but now they're afraid. The dominant species, the Vex, Korath, and Altran, are preparing for total war with Earth. The other three species think that's suicide. Ambassador Keiko leaned forward. What do they want? To survive. They want to negotiate with us before the whole council collapses. They're offering intelligence on military movements, access to restricted technology, and political support. In exchange for? A guarantee that we spare their worlds in our revenge campaign. The room fell silent. The decision was not simple. These three species had stood by and watched while humanity was murdered. They were accomplices, even if not the architects. Admiral Dae-Hyun spoke up from his position commanding the new battle fleet. I say no. They watched us die. They deserve whatever they get. I understand your anger, Ambassador Keiko replied carefully, but accepting this offer divides the council. Makes our enemies weaker. Gives us allies when we desperately need them. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Prime Minister Ji-won made the call. Ambassador, arrange a meeting. Let's hear what they have to say. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Keiko arrived at a neutral trading station on the frontier. The station was old and shabby, frequented by smugglers and merchants who asked no questions. Perfect for a secret negotiation. Captain Hyun-baek accompanied her as security. The intelligence operative had spent months embedded in neutral territory, gathering information on council activities. He trusted no one, and his hand stayed near his weapon as they walked through the station's corridors. The Tauran diplomat Resh waited in a private conference room with representatives from the Plenary and Silkath. All three looked nervous. They understood they were gambling with their species' futures. Ambassador Nam, Resh began, standing in the formal Tauran greeting. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Thank you for reaching out, Keiko replied, keeping her voice neutral. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Resh explained the political situation within the council. The dominant faction had always feared humanity's potential. When humans started developing more advanced AI and more flexible tactics, the fear became panic. The Vex, Korath, and Altran decided that eliminating Earth's military was necessary for their own security. We opposed the plan, the plenary representative said. Her species was insectoid, with clicking mandibles that their translators struggled to interpret. But we were threatened, told that if we did not support the Kellian operation, our own trade routes would be closed. Our colonies would be left undefended. So you chose to murder us instead of risking inconvenience, Keiko said coldly. We chose survival, Resh admitted. It was wrong. We know that now. But at the time we believed we had no choice. And now? Captain Hyun asked. Now we see that the dominant faction has led us into disaster. Your ghost fleet has crippled our economy. Your revenge campaign has turned galactic opinion against the council. If this continues, all 7 species will collapse into chaos. The Silkath representative, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, added, We offer partnership, intelligence on council military movements, access to technology you do not possess, political support in galactic forums. What do you want in return? Keiko asked. Guarantee that Earth's attacks will spare our systems. When the council falls, and it will fall, we want to be on the winning side. Keiko took notes but made no promises. I will take your offer to my government. Be ready to prove your sincerity with actionable intelligence. While diplomacy unfolded in shadows, Earth's military continued its transformation. Engineer Somin Ryu had completed her masterpiece, the Avenger-class battle carrier. The new ship was revolutionary. It incorporated captured council technology, reverse-engineered VRAC systems, and uniquely human innovations. The result was a warship that finally matched council firepower. The first ship of the class was named ECS Minji Park. When Admiral Dae-Hyun took command, he stood on the bridge and felt her spirit surrounding him. This ship would honor her sacrifice. Dr. Hana had equipped the new fleet with adaptive combat AI. Unlike rigid council tactical computers, human AIs could learn during battle. They analyzed enemy patterns, predicted movements, and suggested unconventional tactics. Combined with human crew creativity, the new ships were unpredictable and deadly. Sir, the fleet is ready for combat trials, Engineer Soman reported. Behind her stood 23 new warships, Earth's response to council supremacy. No trials, Dae-Hyun said. We're going straight to combat. Real targets, real enemies. Where, sir? Wherever Director Yuna tells us Council Admiral Vryn will be. Admiral Vryn had become obsessed with destroying the Ghost Fleet. The Council commander had dedicated his entire career to the pursuit. He analyzed every attack, studied every pattern, trying to predict where Commander Taeyang would strike next. Director Yuna watched Vryn's movements through her intelligence network. She knew obsession when she saw it. Obsessed people made mistakes, and she was about to exploit that weakness. Commander Taeyang, she said through encrypted comm, I'm going to feed Vryn false intelligence. Make him think your Ghost Fleet is hiding in the Keswick system, an abandoned mining colony with good sensor cover. And? Taeyang asked. And Admiral Daehyun's battle fleet will be waiting there. We're going to trap the trapper. The plan took weeks to set up. Yuna's agents fed carefully crafted intelligence through channels they knew Vryn monitored. The information had to be believable, not too obvious, but compelling enough to make him commit forces. It worked. Vryn assembled a task force of 75 warships, overwhelming force to crush 12 Ghost Fleet ships once and for all. He jumped his fleet to Keswick confident of victory. The Keswick system looked empty. Asteroid fields. Dead mining stations. No signs of activity. Vryn's ships spread out to search, dividing their formation to cover more area. That was when the trap sprung. Admiral Daehyun's battle fleet powered up from hiding positions in the asteroid belt. 23 ships appeared on sensors simultaneously, their weapons already locked on targets. The Council ships tried to reform their defensive pattern, but the human AIs had predicted their movements. They knew where Council captains would try to regroup and were already firing on those positions. The battle was chaos. Council ships were designed for formation warfare, fighting as a unified whole. But divided and ambushed, they could not coordinate effectively. Human ships darted between asteroids, used the terrain, fought like predators instead of soldiers. Sergeant Junho commanded a frigate in the battle. His ship was smaller than the Council cruisers but faster and more maneuverable. He used that advantage mercilessly. Target their sensor arrays first, he ordered. Blind them, then hit their engines. His crew executed perfectly. The frigate danced through enemy fire, taking hits but dealing worse. They crippled 3 Council ships in the first 20 minutes. Then Junho's luck ran out. A Council battleship scored a direct hit on his engine section. The frigate lost power, drifting helplessly. Abandoned ship, his second officer shouted. No, Junho said calmly. He checked the tactical display. A Council cruiser was moving to finish them off, but it would pass close to another human ship in the process. Everyone else to the escape pods. I'm staying. Sergeant, we can still— That's an order. His crew evacuated. Hunyo sat alone on the bridge, watching the enemy cruiser approach. He rerouted all remaining reactor power to the engines. One final burst. One last chance to matter. The frigate lurched forward on emergency power. Junyo aimed straight at the Council cruiser, ignoring the weapons fire tearing through his ship. He was already dead. He just had to stay alive long enough to make it count. The frigate struck the cruiser amidships at full speed. Both ships exploded, but the debris field disrupted the Council formation, allowing 3 human vessels to escape a coordinated attack. Commander Taeyang watched Junho die from the Ghost Fleet's position on the system's edge. Hee-ha. 22 months after Kellyan, High Counselor Thex made his final gamble. He ordered every Council warship to Zerion, a fortress world deep in Council space. The fleet numbered 340 ships, the largest military force in recorded history. It was overwhelming power. It had to be enough. The broadcast went out across all channels. Thex addressed the galaxy with pride and fury in his voice. Humanity claims to seek revenge. Let them come to Zerion and claim it. We will be waiting. We will show the galaxy that the Council cannot be broken by terrorists and criminals. On Earth, the leadership watched the challenge in the Citadel war room. The tactical displays showed Zerion's defenses. Orbital platforms, planetary shields, 340 warships in defensive formation. It was a trap and everyone knew it. He wants us to attack, Prime Minister Jiwon said. He thinks superior numbers will crush us. He's not wrong, Admiral Daehyun replied, studying the data. We have 79 ships. Even with our new technology, those odds are terrible. Fleet Admiral Sunwoo, now 70 years old, looked at the young officers around the table. They had fought for almost 2 years. Lost friends. Lost innocence. They were tired. But they were not finished. Can we win? Sunwoo asked Daehyun directly. Daehyun considered the question carefully. Every strategic calculation said no. Every tactical analysis showed defeat. The numbers did not lie, but numbers did not account for human stubbornness. Not if we fight their way, Daehyun said slowly. But we don't fight fair. Give me 2 weeks to plan, and I'll give you Zirion. The planning session lasted 3 days. Commander Taeyang, Dr. Hana, Engineer Soman, and Director Yuna worked around the clock. They analyzed Zirion's defenses, studied Council tactical doctrine, and searched for any weakness they could exploit. The plan that emerged was called Operation Checkmate. It relied on 3 elements. First, deception. Ambassador Keiko would use her contacts with the Tauran, Plenari, and Silkath to feed false intelligence to Thex. Make him think Earth's fleet was only 40 ships instead of 79. The additional 39 ships would hide until the critical moment. Second, technology. Dr. Hana had developed a weapon called the Cascade Generator. It used quantum entanglement to disable multiple ship reactors simultaneously. The weapon was experimental, required enormous power, and would likely destroy any ship that used it. Third, sacrifice. Someone had to take the Cascade Generator into the center of the enemy fleet and activate it. It was a suicide mission. No one would survive. I'll do it, Admiral Daehyun said immediately. Sir, we need you to command the fleet, Taeyang protested. No, you'll command the fleet. I'll create the opening you need. Daehyun's voice was final. I was at Kellyan. I watched my fleet die. If one more death can finish this, then it will be mine. Prime Minister Ji-won wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in his eyes. Some debts could only be paid one way. The ECS Minji Park will carry the Cascade Generator. Daehyun continued. Fitting, don't you think? The ship named for her sacrifice will make one final sacrifice of its own. The fleet prepared in secret. Engineer Soman modified the Minji Park to handle the Cascade Generator's power requirements. It meant stripping away defensive systems and armor. The ship would be fragile, but it only needed to survive long enough to reach the center of the enemy formation. Dr. Hana worked on the weapon itself. She tested and retested the calculations, trying to maximize its range while ensuring it would work when needed. There would be no second chances. It will disable about 100 ships within a 5-kilometer radius, she told Daehyun. Their reactors will shut down completely. It will take them at least 30 minutes to restart, assuming their systems aren't permanently damaged. 30 minutes, Daehyun said. That's all Commander Taeyang needs. The night before departure, the entire fleet gathered for a memorial service. They honored Captain Minji Park, Sergeant Junho Shin, and all the fallen from Kellyan and the battles that followed. Names were read aloud. Stories were shared. Tears were shed. Admiral Daehyun spoke last. Tomorrow we end this. Not because we're stronger than them. Not because we have better technology. But because we're fighting for something they can never understand. We're fighting for family, for honor, for the memory of everyone they took from us. He paused, looking at the faces of his crews. Young and old. Scared and brave, human, they thought Kellyan would break us. Instead, it forged us into something they fear. Tomorrow we show them why that fear was justified. Earth's fleet jumped to Zirion the next morning. They arrived to find the Council Armada waiting in perfect defensive formation. High Counselor Thex watched from the Planetary Command Center, surrounded by his military advisors. How many ships? He asked. 41, sir. Exactly as our intelligence predicted. Thex smiled. They're fools. They actually came. Destroy them. The battle began with Admiral Daehyun leading his squadron directly at the Council Center. It looked like a suicidal charge, and in many ways it was. The Council ships concentrated their fire on the ECS Minji Park, eager to destroy the human flagship. The ship took devastating damage immediately. Shields failed. Hull breaches opened to space. Crew members died at their stations. But the Minji Park kept moving forward, pushed by the courage of everyone aboard. Sir, we've lost weapons, the tactical officer reported. Life support is failing on decks 6 through 12. Reactor is critical. Keep us on course, Daehyun ordered calmly. He watched the distance to the enemy center close. 5 kilometers. 4. 3. Behind him, hidden in the system's outer reaches, the 39 additional human ships decloaked and began their approach. But they were too far away to help. Daehyun's squadron was alone. 2 kilometers, the helmsman said. The young man's voice was steady despite the ship falling apart around them. Daehyun opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. It has been my honor to serve with you. Finish what we started. For Kellyan. For Earth. For humanity." He closed the channel and looked at his crew. "Thank you. All of you. Let's make this count." The ECS Minji Park crossed into the center of the Council formation. 100 enemy ships surrounded them, all firing. The ship was seconds from total destruction. Admiral Daehyun activated the cascade generator. The weapon fired, sending out waves of quantum disruption in all directions. Ship reactors across 100 Council vessels simultaneously shut down. The lights went dark. Weapons went offline. Life support switched to emergency power. The Minji Park exploded a moment later, taking Daehyun and his entire squadron with him. The explosion was massive, destroying 5 Council ships that were too close and damaging dozens more. But it created the opening humanity needed. Commander Taeyang's fleet attacked immediately. The 39 hidden ships struck from multiple vectors, targeting the disabled Council vessels. The adaptive AIs predicted where the functional ships would try to regroup and were already there waiting. The Council fleet had never faced such chaos. 1/3 of their forces were disabled. Another third were trying to protect the disabled ships. The final third were trying to form a defensive line against the human attack. None of it worked. Human ships fought as individuals, each captain making their own decisions, each crew adapting to changing circumstances. The Council captains kept waiting for orders from a central command that could not coordinate fast enough. The battle lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of brutal, desperate combat. Ships exploded. Crews died, space filled with debris and bodies. On Zirion, High Counselor Thex watched his fleet disintegrate. He had started with 340 ships. Now more than half were destroyed or disabled. The humans were losing ships too, but not fast enough. They were winning. "Sir, we must retreat," his military advisor urged. "Retreat where?" Thex asked bitterly. "The humans control the jump points. We're trapped in our own fortress." Commander Taeyang saw the same thing from his command ship. The Council fleet was beaten, but they could still do terrible damage if they fought to the death. He opened a broadcast on all frequencies. "Council fleet, this is Commander Taeyang Choi of Earth. You are defeated. Surrender now and we will accept. Fight on, and we will destroy every ship in this system. You have 60 seconds to decide." On Zirion, Thex faced the impossible choice. His political career was over regardless, but he could save lives or waste them in a futile gesture. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "All ships stand down." The Council fleet surrendered. The largest military force in history had been defeated by a smaller enemy that refused to fight by the rules. Earth had lost 29 ships and 47,000 personnel in the battle. But they had won. Commander Taeyang accepted the formal surrender aboard Admiral Vrin's captured flagship. He thought about everyone who had died to reach this moment. Minji Park, Admiral Daehyun, Sergeant Junho, 177,000 at Kellyan, all the crews lost in 2 years of war. He transmitted a single message back to Earth. Revenge delivered. On Earth, crowds filled the streets. Celebrations erupted spontaneously. The war was over. Humanity had survived. They had won. Prime Minister Ji-won stood before the global broadcast, tears streaming down her face. "Today we honor our fallen. Admiral Daehyun Kim gave his life to end this war. Captain Minji Park's sacrifice inspired us.